Welcome back to the EUS Challenger Series number 19. I'm terribly sorry I lied to you guys again. We are actually going into the Departed game since we had spectator issues with the TFS game. So, we're in game number 2 of the series that we showed you game number 1 on. Departed going up against Syphus. So, I'm Stress alongside Pulse. Let's get into the game.
So we're 14 minutes into the game, and we should probably go through the picks at least. We don't know what the bans were, but at least we can talk about some of these champions. Lots of action already happened, 11 kills, but the game is still very even.
Yeah, thankfully it is an even game that we've jumped into and not a one-sided stomp. It looks like there's been quite a lot of aggression down in that bottom lane. You can see 2 kills on Jinx with the tower down as well, so there's clearly been a lot of action down around the bottom side of the map. Dragon also not available for a while yet longer either, so how will these teams prepare themselves for the next onslaught?
Alright man, let's take a look at some of these lane matchups, because that's something we haven't really looked at all, because we've only just jumped into this game. So, it's going to be Renekton and Trundle in the top lane, which is a fairly standard lane matchup nowadays. It was kind of a pity, because we had Jackson Chen picked up in the other game, and I really wanted to see how that was just going to go, because it's kind of harkening back to the old days. But Gragas Barrow and his combo is not going to be enough, and the Zap won't either, and Babunia just killed Renekton.
Yeah, that was just a straight up poor trade there out of Breezer. He just didn't have enough health with Dominus there to really be able to offset Babunia's damage and survivability. With that finished Blade of the Rune King as well, means he's outputting a fair amount of damage at this point in the game.
Usually when you see the Giant's Belt and the Chain Vest and you see the completed item from Trundle, usually it's enough armor and survivability, especially with Dominus, at least to have done some damage to Babunia, but he finished that trade with full HP, so it just seems like a very odd trade.
Well, I think the other thing to look at there is that a lot of the time Trundle will actually rush some resistance first to try and survive that lane, but Trundle being 2-2 right now, with Renekton having died 3 times, I guess leads us to believe that there was an early game advantage up in that top lane for Trundle, and therefore he rushed damage. So it kind of looks like a situation where Trundle has just seemingly been ahead for a while.
Definitely seems to be the case. In the jungle, though, it seems like Stinger has definitely been doing work from his team. And Syphus at the moment is 1 game down since we saw the result of the last game just a couple minutes ago before we had those tech issues. But they seem to be in pretty good shape in this game with that 1 tower advantage. Jungle doing well, but so many times we've seen Lee Sin with those kills stacked up on him, and then when we get to the mid game and late game, he starts to scale off again, and those kills become less relevant, and they might have been in places where you would have wanted them more.
We actually saw Departed looking pretty strong this past weekend with the Star Ladder qualifiers as well. So Departed are seemingly putting out a good showing here, being 1-0 up. But as you said, right now they're up at a little bit in gold overall, but they are down on that tower. So we'll see whether that gets leveled up anytime soon. But Dragon will be back up in 1 minute. We'll have to look for this next skirmish because you can feel it bubbling.
Absolutely. With Nidalee on the opposing team as well, it's something you have to be very decisive about when you're going for those objectives. You can't just hang around the area and hope that they won't try and poke you, because Nidalee by herself can be a very disruptive influence in that small choke point just around the Baron, just around the Dragon Pit and the Baron Pit when we get to that stage.
There's a number of turrets evened up with Trundle taking that down in the top lane, and even though Breezer was there, he just couldn't really do anything to stop Babunia from just wailing away on the turrets. So, as you said, that's, with the objective going down in the top lane, that staying around Dragon's going to be a little difficult here for Syphus because of that Nidalee.
Absolutely going to be causing some issues for the team of Syphus, who do have to deal with him, but they also have to deal with Dragon spawning in 10 seconds. It depends how hard Babunia can push against Breezer in the top lane, and when he can actually make a relevant threat against next tower. But Breezer was quite happy to tank up those minions, and it doesn't look like Trundle's going to be able to do anything anytime soon. No teleports in that top lane, so they won't be able to get into contention for this fight. But Blitzer in the mid lane is taking those spears, and this Dragon will be started by the team of Departed.
Yeah, they've got a pink ward there, so they know it is warded in the back. They don't really feel confident enough to take it by the looks of things, as NIQ does return back to the middle lane. And right now, this is a dance that I think that Departed are quite happy to take right here, because they can just force Syphus away, and they know that top lane's already going in their favor across the map.
They're using Jinx as basically one of the only methods of poke. They've also got Gragas throwing out those barrels as well, but NIQ will definitely be coming out on top and trimp all of that poke with those javelins coming across. Just one of those landing at max range will put a person out of the fight almost permanently if they don't have a way of getting their HP back. This is a very extended Dragon Dance. They in fact gonna aggress onto Blitzer over the wall, but only Kickers is there really to follow up. The Lantern has come across the wall, and Wooliter is also supplying some damage. Only really onto Tibbers. Singer goes huge, jumps over the wall. Breezer in the top lane though, looks like he's gonna be falling to Baboonia. Manages to get to the Sanctuary of a second in a turret onto that inhibitor turret. Still, the Dragon Dance is continuing, and Departed have started it, but are forced to back off. Another Q comes across from Stinger, and Synchro looking for those auto attacks, looking for those zats, but those javelins are really starting to mount up. Woll has been caught by that fantastic death sentence from Perm. Meanwhile, on the top lane, another tower's fallen. Kickers is quite far down. Super Mega Death Rocket weaves in between that team of Departed, and again, this dance will continue.
And the longer it goes on, the better it is for Departed, because all of the major abilities have been used. Stinger hits the box, takes a lot. Here's the follow-up.
Everyone gets stuck in the Flame Chompers. Kickers goes forward. The rest of the team is already caught out, but Stinger is going to get out of there. Blitzer is not going to be so lucky. NIQ is going to be the one following up, looking for those javelins. Finds Breezer as he comes in from the top lane, but it seems like Dragon secures for Departed.
When Kickers got caught over the backside of the wall, the Annie stun and the Gragas ultimate were used as well. So without Tibbers and the explosive cast, there was really no way of them fighting that fight without Kickers stepping forward and really being over aggressive. And that's what he did. So they ended up trading a little bit evenly there. But when you take into account that that was the Dragon, the top tower, and nearly a kill in top lane as well, that's a considerable amount of gold that Departed just picked up.
Trundle was really becoming a serious issue in the top lane. Picked up a Warden's Mail and a Negatron Cloak, kind of lacking a bit on the HP bar, but offering a lot of damage in return, and Breezer just isn't able to deal with that. While that trade was happening, he was just pushing Breezer back, pushed him behind his inner turret, and now he's going to be pushing up towards the inhibitor turret as well, so they are going to have to commit at least 2 people to him, and especially when those objectives are on the map such as Dragon, they can't afford to go for a 3 versus 4.
And one of the reasons why the Renekton-Trundle matchup is so commonly seen these days is Renekton pushes Trundle's potency back a little bit into the game. It's still very much so Trundle's game as the game goes on, but Renekton has a really good early game against Trundle, and to see a Trundle dominating this early on in the game at 21 minutes, that's pretty difficult now for Syphus to overcome, because there's not really anybody that'll ever be able to duel a Trundle from now on.
Renekton doesn't really catch up to Trundle. He needs to be ahead early, and that's not happened at all. I mean, we saw this in the LMQ game, but maybe not as badly as this one, because he hasn't been pushed all the way to the inhib tower. Baboonia just wanders into the mid lane, just annoys that Blitzer, but a 5-man stack, and also with those spears raining through, it doesn't look like they'll be able to stop this push, especially with the tower being on 151 health.
Yeah, that's how it will go down, even when the minions get there. But the minions won't get there because Gragas is a little bit too good. There's the flash forwarding for stun.
Flash into Tibbers. Stinger's coming in from the backside. So will Breezer come in from the front. Assault and battery onto Synchro. But Kickers is again by himself. Another fantastic javelin will secure that. Dark Passage comes across. Kickers goes for the re-engage onto Annie. Follow up with the piercing light. Picks up another. There's the second kill of this fight. NIQ takes another barrel. 7-9 is the current scoreline, and they're going to carry on pushing the mid lane.
It looks like Stinger might be in trouble, but Kickers decides to back off a little bit there. They want to push the minions up to make sure they can siege that turret down, and Stinger has been found by Kickers, but will he get away?
Got the red buff, and he did jump to the minions using Safeguard. He's going to be home and dry, but Kickers, not usual to see a Vial trader Lee Sin.
Yeah, that's not too usual at all. We discussed actually in the previous Champions Select, thankfully had Vi and Lee Sin, so we did go over that a little bit earlier, but again, Vi typically in the beginning of the game should fall behind a Lee Sin, but looks like they managed to get Vi out of that dangerous early game.
Everyone is firmly ahead from that team of Departed. It's back on off, pick up all those camps that they can on the way out. Let's take a look at some of the gold toe scores. 2,000 on Trundle, which is no small surprise, but everyone on that team of Departed is above 1k. Everyone's quite happy to back off, buy some items and look for another fight. Dragon's going to be up in another couple minutes, but they're pushing them all the way back to their base. Bot tower looks like the next objective they might go for.
Wow, there's something very surprising in this game, and that is swiftness boots on Lucian. That is not something I've ever seen. Typically, Berserker's Greaves on an AD carry is so cost efficient because of the extra attack speed that obviously increases the damage output that you have per second that I don't want to. I don't want to say it's not a good choice because there's quite a lot in the way of CC on the side of Syphus. You've got multiple stuns that are possible out of Annie, depending on when her passive is charged. Flame Chompers, Zap. Lee Sin has a slow from Cripple. So there's a lot of abilities that will require tenacity and or movement slowing effects. Sorry. So obviously stuns won't be affected, but I guess that they're just looking to reduce as many of that slows as possible.
Pretty interesting, because I assume it's just against the Zap, really. It's just hoping that if he does get tagged by the Zap, okay, well, I'm going to be getting out of that very quickly. But even Berserker's Greaves on Lucian, you will pick up because it affects the ultimate damage on the culling. It does increase that DPS. And on AD carry, sometimes you'll rarely see a Merc Treads if you see, like, a really fed LeBlanc. But I think Wall might actually need some Merc Treads very soon because damage from the Spears is really looking to mount up.
And the other thing is, Lucian has an escape built into his kit as well,
right.
So typically it's not what you'd expect, but Babunia is going to 2v1 here.
It's actually working out. Flash forwards into Synchro. The barrier is going to be used, blocking out the chomp damage. Mega Death Rocket comes in, does minimal damage, but he is diving 1 versus 2. Finally, he'll be taken down, but that's going to result in a 3 versus 4 inside the opposing base. Kickers comes in from decimating the rest of the team. 4 and 2. Babunia keeping everyone occupied in the bot lane.
And now, can the cleanup come from Stinger here? I don't think he can face this 3v1 when the minions are hitting that top tower as well. So this is going to be an inhibitor turret going down for Departed. And we'll turn their attention to the inhibitor as well. Stinger really doesn't have anything to stop this. Ooh, takes a spear, and that's over
Painful.
a third of his health.
Going to be forced to back off to base. These guys are going to have to start investing in home guard boots when they start getting sieged into those Nexus turrets. So 25 minutes into the game, and Baron is a very real possibility. The rest of the jungle counts are getting cleared up, and again, everyone is recalling with over 1,000 gold.
Yeah, and as they head back onto the Rift, we're seeing the items that are being picked up. A Negatron Cloak on to Vi alongside... oh, actually, no, undoes both of those. So it was going to comment, Vi opts for more damage, going towards what looks to be a Hex Drinker here. So wanting to survive through any burst damage that's going to come from Gragas here.
That's basically all he has to deal with. The damage coming from elsewhere. Lee Sin's essentially building tank, which is a problem when you stack all the kills onto Lee Sin. It's like, okay, well, he's going to be more tanky, but as you progress later into the game, his utility doesn't drop from being behind in kills and farm. And Jinx is also going to be dealing AD damage, but Randuin's already completed on Viperm. Over the wall, lands the hook onto that small minion.
The Randuin's hasn't been completed on either Lee Sin or Renekton either, so I'm still questioning this Boots of Swiftness, because it's not even like those active slows are going to be reduced either, because they're not really there yet. All we've got is the attack speed reduction from Warden's Mail, which of course isn't affected by that either. So I don't know, I'm still kind of wondering on this Swiftness Boots pickup. It just seems a little bit strange to me.
I'm still thinking about it, because his Relentless Pursuit will just cleanse slows anyway, and Synchro has been caught out, a couple auto attacks, and the Subjugate will drop him to 50% HP. The rest of the team is kind of congregating around the area, but even 2 versus 1, he is definitely going to win out, unless there's also a turret there.
Yeah, and all of this has been a bit of a distraction with the dragon going down as minions again pushing in through that open top lane as well. So somebody has to stick around there to make sure they clear it, and they've seen 3 members, so that instantly is going to be answered with a Baron attempt.
A very strange ward placement though from Syphus will make sure they know where they are, and the fact they are attempting this Baron with this 3-man stack. Lily is going to be the one to zone them away with those spears. Oh, just going to carry on chunking down the Baron, but down to about 50% HP, and now down to 10%, and now actually dead. It doesn't look like that has made the slightest bit of difference. Now Kickers is posturing for an engage with Assault and Battery. Blitzer comes off to the side, and Trundle was back at base. Breezer's going to be the one to get caught out. Javelin across the wall will put him into the death chamber at the very start of this fight. A huge hook from Perm, gets himself knocked back. Wall with a perfect tip is onto Free, and another perfect explosive cask onto those locked up members of Departed, bringing it to a 1-to-1 trade. Psychro though caught out by Kickers, and Babunia. Kickers is getting chunked by that turret, uses the Q to get out. Woolacer picks up the kill onto Annie, and Gragas will also drop. This looks like it's going to be curtains on this game. Stinger once again is the only man remaining.
Yeah, with minions pushing in through the top lane, and now super minions will be coming through the middle lane as well. This is going to be the game here, as the Nexus turrets will go down. Strong performance once again out of Departed here, as they will advance on to the next round of the European Challenger Series number 19.
They're looking strong, man. We've seen them in the Star Ladder Star Series and look strong there, and they're looking strong in the US Challenger Series. And we'll see how far they progress in this tournament. Departed are basically the X-Pulse lineup with a couple players thrown in, and they're looking very good.
They are looking very good indeed. And something else that looks pretty good is the next series that we've got coming up today. We'll get more information on that, and we'll be starting that series in just a couple of minutes. So stick with us here for EUS Challenger Series number 19 further coverage.